Are you looking to create a project budget in Excel, but are not quite sure how to do so, what data you need to capture, and how you should format it? Well, today I'm going to be walking you through step by step how to create a project budget in Excel. Now, as you will see here, I've opened up a blank, brand new Excel workbook. And in the first sheet, I've just called this project budget tutorial. Now, let's get started. So first and foremost, what I would recommend doing is making sure that you have black text. That's always going to help. So what I would first recommend doing is typing in project name. So what you want to do here is, I'm actually going to change all of the text to Century Gothic because I quite like that. But what we're going to want to do here is give some basic information on the project itself. And that way, anyone who kind of comes into this project or opens up the project budget knows exactly what it is in reference to. So I'm actually going to just expand some of these out as well. So one thing to note, I'm going to put in some of the formatting that I personally like, make it a little bit more easier to see and read, but you know, that's open to you how you want to kind of display your data. But what I'm going to do here quickly is I'm just going to put this into like a grey, kind of a light grey box, and we can just do something like here. So we're going to go outside borders, and then we might want to put let's do all borders for now. So yeah, so if you're the project manager, you know, you can come in here and you can just put in your project name. So let's get on to the actual table itself. So in here, we're going to put in task. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a project budget that basically provides an overview of the entire project and also individual tasks. So that way, you know, you can get a better understanding or greater granularity depending on how much, you know, and how in depth you really want to report on. So the first column we're going to have as task, and let's put this in grey as well. We're going to have a description. So if you wanted to include a description of each task, we're going to put in status. So the status of each task. We're going to put in a start date. So as you can imagine, the start date of the task. And we'll put this as actually as a start date planned. Now let's put this as planned start date. Next up, so I'm just double clicking on here just to get the required width for so all the text is legible. Actual planned end date is next. Again, one other thing you can do is you can wrap the text so that kind of makes it display down below if the column width is a little bit smaller. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm just going to expand that out. So I double clicked on the row just to, you know, make it expand to where it needs to be. I'm actually going to put this in center as well. Next up we have that should be actual start date, excuse me. Next up we're going to have end date. Again, I'm just going to do this formatting. Now what we're going to do here is this is when we can break out the different types of costs. So up here, these are just examples. They might differ depending on your project, but I'm going to have a section now for labour. So this is going to be on an hourly rate. So we're going to put HR for hour. You might want to put in, you know, a bit more, you know, the specifics here so that someone knows what HR actually means. You know, obviously you've got things like human resources, so you don't want to confuse anyone with your terminology. And then this is going to be kind of their rate per hour. So if I was putting this in dollars, for instance, we're going to do this in dollars, but you could obviously do this in any currency that you need for your project. So here we will have a labour total. Again, I'm using American English here, so just use what you need to do. I'm actually just going to put that all in grey. Next up, we're going to have a section on materials. And again, we're going to have here we're going to have similar kind of columns, but they're going to be, this time they're going to be something like units. We're going to have dollar per unit. Again, we want these to be grey. Next up, we're going to have, and then we're going to have a materials total. So you're starting to get an understanding of how this is kind of shaping up. If you had, you know, different costs you wanted to create, you could have your hourly rate, and you could have, sorry, you could add a column to add the number of hours or units, or, you know, that kind of idea, and then how much it's going to cost per hour, so, or per unit. So you get the idea of what we're trying to achieve here, and I'll show you the formulas in due course, which kind of make all this kind of run together. So the next one is going to be other. So this could be any other cost. You might even just want to have this as your only section. So we're going to have we're going to break these out into individual ones. So we're going to have individual costs. So we've got travel costs. We've got, say, equipment. We could have fixed costs. You get the idea here, and we'll just put one out other in here for miscellaneous. So they could be any costs in particular. So that's a mistake, and we're just going to put these in grey. I'm actually going to make these a little bit smaller, and I'm going to do that. For some reason the wrap text hasn't worked, so I'm going to select all of the cells, wrap text. Okay. So we've got MISC. We obviously need an other total for the same kind of logic that we have. I'm going to use the format painter this time. So select this, format painter, and that should wrap it and also give it the grey. Now we're nearly there. We're going to add two more columns here, budget and actual. So this can help us to see if we are under or over. And again, select this cell, format painter across, and we'll put here balance. That gives us an idea of, you know, this is going to be a big column, this one, very, very important. We'll put this as just grey, just for, you know, just to make it kind of sink in. Now, if we, in this one, we're going to put project. So that way, I'm actually going to make, I'm going to make that one centered as well. So that way we get an understanding basically on project level. I'll put that in grey like that as well. Now let's put some individual tasks in. So I'm going to put a border around this just to differentiate all of the different cells. So as you can see, I've selected a brief outline of where that we might expect this budget to go, and I'm going to go at the top here and go all borders. So drop down here, and we're going to go all borders. Now we can start putting in tasks here. So I don't know what your tasks are going to be for your particular project, so I'm just going to put literally tasks in, and then that way you can update this with whatever you know it needs to be. And then you can also put subtasks in here. So I'm going to indent this, so I need to look for this icon here. So I've gone home and indent, and that should be subtask, and then we're going to bring a few more down here just as an example, and then we could put a few more tasks. So that's a Control C and a Control V just to bring this down here. We'll put a couple more down. This is just to give you an idea really of the different tasks that could make up a project. This enables greater kind of tracking really of your budget. So next up, we're going to work on the status column. So what I would recommend doing here is I would create a key, if you like, so a status key. So I'm going to put that here, and we can put that, you know, this could be anywhere. You could put this right at the end if you liked, but I'm just going to show it here so it's more kind of available. And we're going to have different statuses for each of the tasks. So not started is one example. We could have an in progress. We could have a complete. We could have a on hold, and we could have something like overdue. Now I'm going to give these different statuses a different color, and that way we can have some conditional formatting. So this column starts to reflect in color depending on the status selected. So if, for instance, it not started could be something like what kind of makes sense here? It could be like we'll put it as a little orange, a light orange. In progress, we're going to have as a kind of a light green. A complete would make sense to have, you know, a darker green. So that one looks quite nice. On hold, we can have, say, a grey would be kind of useful here, but I don't want to kind of, yeah, we'll put it as a dark grey so it's differentiated from the table itself. And an overdue, I think, makes sense to be yellow or red. We'll put it as a red. Actually, no, we'll put it as yellow for now. We'll put it as yellow. Right, so here we go. We've got our status key. I'm going to bold this. Now, what we can do here is we can set up some data validation so that instead of having to type this manually, it can be a drop down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the cells that we want this drop down from the status key. I'm going to select data, and then I'm going to select data validation. Click here, data validation. Now, we want to allow only a list. We want a list of items, and the source is going to be here. So all I've done here is I've referenced these cells, if you like. So basically the source field here will be blank. I've left clicked on my mouse on cell, this will be C23, and I've dragged it down and it's created this. Obviously you could type that in manually, but that would be quite more complex. Once you've got that kind of the source in place and the list, if I press OK, now you'll see this little button against each of the cells. And what that basically does is you've got the different statuses that we've set up. So we've got a not started. Let's just put this one as not started, in progress, and we'll put some of these as in progress. Actually, let's put that one as complete, for instance. I have a couple of in progress, and then we'll put this one on hold just as an illustration. And we'll be doing the conditional formatting later, because we're going to put several different rules on this project budget to make it more visually appealing and easier to work with. So we're getting there now. So we're going to leave these blank. You know, when you start entering your tasks, you can put your start and end dates in here. You know, your planned and your actual, so you can see your predictability on your project and see if it kind of ran to schedule. But let's do the cost, because this is really what your budget is all about. So I'm just going to put in some dummy numbers just to, you know, give you an idea of how this would work. So that's 35 working hours. And I'm not going to go to every task. I'm just going to do the first 3 just to give you that idea of how this would work. I've obviously, this is center. The reason why it's in the middle of the cell is I've got some center alignment. Now, obviously this will also range by your task or your cost. So let's say this particular labor task costs me $40 an hour, and this one costs 50, and this one costs 25. So just random numbers. Now there's one thing you can do here, which I quite like to do, is you can format your columns on. So this, at the moment, this is a kind of a general field. What I'm going to do is I've selected all the cells in this column. As you can see, I'm going to right click, I'm going to click format cells, and you could change it to a currency and put your symbol in. So depending on the currency you need, obviously you can tell by my accent from the UK, so that's a pound, but you could put that in USD, American dollars, Australian dollars, etc. But here's a good one. If you go custom and go to this wacky looking type, you see it kind of indents and it just kind of looks pretty good. So if I have to put it like that actually, then you'll see that it's kind of come across and it's just formatted in a really good way. I think if I just type in 40, yeah, sorry. So the reason why it was appearing like that is because I'd already personally put in the $sign. But the way I've set this up now, if I just type in a number, then it's going to, you'll see that it's just automatically created that in that kind of formatting, and it's put the dollar in automatically, and it's also put in the it's not just the dollar value, but it's put in the cent value as well. So just as a memory, or for your memory, that's a format cells, it's a custom, and it's this wacky one at the bottom. So you're gonna have to scroll down a little bit, and I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up from the bottom. Press OK, and that will apply. So we've got that here. Now here we just really want to put in some. No, here we need to put in a formula. So what we want to do here, so the labour total is going to be the number of hours times by the number of hours worked. So this is simply going to be, and we're going to use an if error, so equals if error. And the reason why is if there's no value in here, we want it to kind of have a, instead of having like an NA, we want to have like a particular something, something else entered, and I'll show you that in a moment. So equals if error. So if H8, so if this times by this, and if not, so if it's an error, we want it to be a blank. And as you'll see, that's given us a total here. So again, we're probably going to want to change this as well. So again, format cells, custom, all the way down to the bottom. It was 6 up, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. $1,400 total. So 35 hours times 40 gives us this. And now we have this in place, this formula, we can drag it down and it will give us the totals there. So absolutely fantastic. It's shaping up nicely. Next, we've got the materials. So we're going to put in 25, 1, 300. Again, dollars a unit. So we're going to want the same formatting, custom, all the way down. I like this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I like this one. And again, let's put, $5 this time, $10 and 15. So I just type the numbers in then, and as you'll see, because I've set up the formatting, you've got the dollars come through. Materials total. So again, this is going to be equals this if error, remember the if error, open bracket, this one times by this one, and if there's nothing in there, if it's an error, then we want it to be blank. And again, we're going to need the custom value, format cells, custom, all the way down to the bottom, and bang. Excellent. So one other thing you can do is you could hit this as bold, kind of differentiate it a little bit. That's quite nice. And let's put that in bold and that in bold and that in bold as well. And then we could put that in bold. So yeah, little things like that really just kind of help, visually bring it to life and help it just make it more easy on the eye. So you get the idea here. You would literally just replicate this across all of the different sections. So we could have all these, you probably need all these in bold as well now because they're separate sections, but you get the idea. Travel here, you could just put in, let's just put in this as cost. So I'm actually going to select all of these and I'm going to go, you can probably guess, format cells, custom, all the way down to the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how I remember it, 6 up, because I found this earlier and I particularly like it. So, you don't have to use this, but I like it a lot. So let's put, and I would recommend it, it's quite nice. And it gives you that scent, as I say. I'm just going to put in random numbers here. Look, this is just whatever's coming as I type in 656. Who would charge that for a fee? Let's just put 10, 20, 30. Right. So now, other total. Let's bold that. So what would the other total be? So here you really just want to kind of sum up everything in the other section of this budget, if you like. So that's going to be everything from travel all the way through to miscellaneous. So equal sum here all the way through to here. So N8 through to Q8, I equal sum, open bracket, and I left clicked on cell N8 and I dragged it all the way through to Q8, put a closing parenthesis on it and hit return. And that is going to give us our total. So that is essentially adding up all of these here, all of these here, and all of these here. Right, we're getting there. We're nearly there. I'm going to bold all this as well. Why not? Now, budget. What do we put in here? So this could be, your overall budget for each of the different kind of aspects. So let's say your budget was, $1,000 for this task. Let's say your budget was $2,000 for this task. And let's say your budget here was 3,000. Why not? Let's put again, I'm going to set all of these actually, before I do that, all of these into our custom. Format cells, custom, all the way to the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's drag this across. So that's okay. So we've got the right formatting. Now actual. So what's the actual going to be? Well, this is going to simply be the labour total plus the materials total plus the other total. And that is going to give us the total cost. So it's cost us $3,040, yet our budget was $1,000. So are we under or over? Well, you can probably guess. So it's going to be equals the budget minus the actual. So we are negative £2,000 on this one. Now I'm going to drag this down, this formula. So we've set up the formula, and hopefully what that's going to do is the same thing. So I've bottom right dragged it down. Now if we look here, it's doing the labour total, the materials total, or the other total. Now of course, if you're doing your own budget, you might not have all of these sections, but the same principles apply. You're basically looking for all the totals. So if you've just got the other, just say you've got, say, travel, equipment, fixed, you would just do the other total. So that your actual would just be your total here. Just make sure you're counting up all of your cost that's involved in here. So so we've got our actual in here again, and we've got our action in here again. And you can see, again, if I drag this down, you'll get the same thing. So you're basically going to get a calculation here. So what we're doing is we're taking the budget and we're minusing the actual to give us an overview of what, where we are on our budget for each task. So at the moment, the only thing that's been, over budget is this task here. So we're actually not looking at a particularly good project here in terms of what we're expecting in terms of cost. Now, if I put equals sum here and drag all this down, this is going to be a huge number. This one here, this is going to be, this essentially is our project total. So I'm going to put this in a grey. This is the big one. So while this might be on the task level, whether a task was, or a subtask was under or over, this one here gives you the project budget total. So at the moment, based on the numbers in this project budget, we are minus almost $3,000 out of what we predicted. Now, that is essentially how to kind of build a project budget in Excel. But there's a few other things before I finish that I would like to show you, and that really is conditional formatting. Now, the reason for that is, as I said earlier, it just helps your project budget look kind of a little bit easier on the eye and just differentiates some of the data a little bit. So what we're going to do here is I can see the button here, but if you can't see it on your screen, make sure you're on the home ribbon, then look for the conditional formatting button. Now, if you click that, now you want to scroll down to manage rules. Now, we haven't got anything set up at the moment, so first and foremost, we need to select current selection. So I'm going to actually back out of that. I'm going to select all of the table. And I'm going to go back into conditional formatting. So manage rules. So in the current selection, so when I say current selection, it basically means every cell that I've got highlighted here. Now, new rule. So what we basically want to do is set up the status column first and foremost. So format only cells that contain. We want to change this from a cell value to specific text. So anything that contains not started, I can actually click that. So anything that contains that, we want the format to be, we want a fill, and we want it to be that orange. That's what we specified earlier. Press OK. Next up, let's do the next one. So new rule, format only cells that contain specific text. Click in here, in progress, format, fill. That's the light green. I could have these greens a little bit off. Oh, it's that one here. No, it isn't. I could have these a little off, but you just have to match them up basically. So hit OK. New rule, we need cells that contain specific text. I think I could probably do this by selecting all of them. No, it's not going to work. What am I thinking? Third one down, complete. We just basically need to go through them. I think it's that one. I think so. Okay, so we've got the three. Now we just need the one for on hold, the rule for on hold. So new rule, if format only cells that contain specific text. So I've been clicking this down here. You could actually put in the text here. That's another way of doing it. Format cells, fill. So that's the grey one. I believe it's, no, it doesn't. Yeah, that could be it. We'll do it for now. Okay, and okay. And then we need one more new rule, and that's going to be format cells that contain specific text containing overdue. I'll click that. So I've clicked in that box, then I'll click the cell. So it's looking for that text. And the preview, we need this to be a yellow. So okay, so moment of truth. If I hit apply, this should light up like a Christmas tree. And it has. Good. So as you can see, the status column now is got the conditional formatting to apply depending on what is selected. So if we put overdue, if we put in progress, you get the idea. It is now mapping to the status key. So that's one bit of conditional formatting that you may want to put on. Now, the other part of conditional formatting that I would really recommend you put on is to do with the under and over column. So first you need to select the cells and again click the conditional formatting button in the home ribbon. Now click manage rules. Now you'll see the existing rules that we just set up for the status column, but we're going to click a new rule. We want something different this time. Now we want to format all cells based on their values. Now by default Excel is going to suggest a 2-color scale, but I would actually recommend for this particular column the 3-color scale. And what this is essentially doing is it's going to give a scale of colors, so depending on the value that is found within the cell itself. So the minimum value will be in a red or any color you choose, midpoint a yellow, and a maximum a green. Now for a budget, the highest value is going to be a positive value, so that's a good thing. That essentially means that the task or the project did well against the budget. The actual is better than what we budgeted. So let's leave this in this kind of minimums are red. That will be any negative value, so where we kind of come up, we under predicted the cost. And green is where, as I say, we've done well. So let's hit OK, and we need to hit apply. And as you'll see, hit OK again, where we kind of budgeted $2,000, but it only cost us $730, we're in green. That's gone well. Whereas these perhaps not so much. And the big negative of the project and the actual project budget itself in this instance is red. We were minus 3,000 under on this project, or at least with the data that we've got here today. So that's really conditional formatting, and you can set it up for any column that you see fit. I would recommend the status, and I would recommend the under over. And obviously if you start to update these numbers, then things are going to change. You're going to see some changes here, and you're going to see some changes down here. And that's the beauty of conditional formatting. It's responsive to whatever data is within the sheet itself. So this is how to create a project budget in Excel. I hope it was useful. If it was, please do hit the like button, and do subscribe to my channel if you want to, watch more videos like this. And do drop a comment down below if you want this exact template. I'm happy and willing to send this template to you, so you don't have to build it out yourself. So just drop a comment in the section down below, and saying you want this template, and I'll get back to you and get this sent out to you as soon as possible. But with all that being said, I hope you have an excellent day.